Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah.
Week 6 in Rhode Island. We leave the week with 2 weeks left in the regular season, and 4 teams have 1 loss or less, including our undefeated Lob City. They made it through week 6. Thanks for checking out the post-game show. We have Kyler standing by. We're going to break down week 6. And really starting next week, we could do it now, but really starting next week is when the playoff scenarios, I go a little crazy with, if this team beats this team and this team loses, like the, week 17, or it's going to soon to be probably week 18 in the NFL. That last week of the season where like 7 different scenarios need to happen for a team to make the playoffs. Well, every team makes the playoffs in the legacy leagues, but those matchups fluctuate. With the top 4 teams getting a bye, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Week 6 had some good games. We're going to go to Kyler right away. And let's start, and we are very, very unprepared, but let's do it. The last game ended up being the closest from week 6. It was the washed up boys getting to 5-1. Another one of their games, I think, coming in. I knew I was looking forward to it. It was a test for them. Providence defense has been playing very well. They do take care of Providence defense, like I said, 71-67, and they got 21 points from Leroy Brown and Hendel Roll, so 17 rebounds from Leroy Brown as well. But Kyler, what did you see, and what have the washed up boys been able to continue to do to get to 5-1?
Yeah, I spoke with Hendel Roll after the game, and he hit it right on the nail. He said their best ability is their adaptability. And you watch their games, and they don't necessarily look like a team that should be tied for second because nothing like sticks out. But they close out games, they win games, and they definitely don't have a glaring weakness on the team. So I think that their ability to see how the game goes, make their adjustments. In this game in particular, Providence defense switched to a zone halfway through, got a little bit closer, and then there were a couple points at the end, but the washed up boys were able to pull away at the third quarter, early fourth quarter because of their adaptability. And so that's what this team has been doing all season long. And if they can do that in playoffs, they set themselves up really well.
And they are one of the teams right now that kind of the top 4 is separating themselves. Actually, they have a 2-game cushion, the top 4 teams do. That would be Lob City, Game Breakers, Washed Up Boys, and Skyhawks, all at 5-1 or better. And then Providence Defense, Air Mambas, and the Halfway Crooks are all at 3-3, and their team's 5-7 right now. So it's a 2-game gap where those 4 teams, most likely with 2 games to go, will be getting kind of the bye to the quarterfinals, where then it's going to be all really good matchups at that point. So the final 8 there. But yeah, we'll keep it moving in the essence of time. It's going to be a shorter show today, so just heads up on that. But we'll do a recap question at the end if we have some time. But let's get to a finals rematch that ended up with some interesting wrinkles and getting a little out of hand. Lob City defeats the Halfway Crooks 76-54. Dom Langston with 30, but it really was no Jeff Winchell, and then no Nuri Mahmood, Josh Smith was there. He had a rebound, so that's a lie. I was going to say no Josh Smith, but really Lob City had Almar Sabat show up, in the third quarter, and he was like, what quarter are we in? So, Lob City's still able to get the win. Kyler, how are they able to kind of take down the undermanned Halfway Crooks?
Yeah, it was the typical Lob City. They're playing each other, and I was saying to myself, this is not a good game of basketball. But oftentimes when that happens, it means it's a good defensive game of basketball. Lots of shots were being taken rather than high-scoring games where there's dunks and layups over and over and over again. So they were playing great defense, and they had that 3-headed monster of Cody Crawford, Joseph Secator, and Kavai, who all got over 20 points. This game, if you look at the final score, it looks bad, but it was much closer than that in real time. So it was a good performance by both teams, and again, both teams missing key players. So I'd love to see this matchup in the finals, in the quarterfinals, in the semifinals, something like that.
The finals. Yeah. Let's go with that. And this is something I wouldn't normally say, but because it is my team, even though it was a single-digit game really throughout most of the game, the halfway crooks were never able to really put the pressure on it. That may sound weird because it was always 8, and then like you look up, it's 5, and then it's 11 because Lob City makes a couple shots, and you get it back to 6. That was happening. And even with that happening, it never was able to really pick up for the halfway crooks to get any closer than that. And then in the fourth quarter, Lob City did what they do. Again, Dom Langston with 30, 8 for 32 from 3 for the halfway crooks, who had 4 guys, so that's not great. And they get out rebounded 40-30. So, yeah, some things that aren't gonna go well for the halfway crooks, who, like we talked about, fall to 3-3 with those 2 games remaining. Now there's some interesting matchups that ended up kind of being wider margins than we expected, but it is the Skyhawks also getting to 5-1. The Skyhawks 89-70 over All Talk Sports, and really a big second quarter. The stats are on the website, thelegacyleagues.com. We have our points by quarter, and it's always a good, it isn't always the true story of the game, but it kind of gives you a good feel of clearly by quarter who scored what, but you can kind of tell the rhythm of the game. But for the Skyhawks, Omar Rahman, 35 points, 16 of 19 from the floor, was really able to have his way down low, even though All Talk Sports and Tom DeAndrea, 26 and 15. So it's interesting how that was both happening at the same time, right? And we'll go to Kyler here in a second. Like, it wasn't like it was just, a parade to the rim for either team, and yet Omar led the way with 35. Noah James with 6 threes and 28 points and 18 rebounds for him, where he's normally on the perimeter taking shots, and 18 rebounds is a lot for him. We talked about Tom DeAndrea, Justin Bianchi with 16, but another game, Kyler, where close to the first quarter, we thought it might be frisky, and then really after halftime, All Talk Sports never really to make it a game.
Yeah, it was. It's what you see from Skyhawks, and it's what can happen. The Skyhawks can beat any team if they hit their shots, and if they don't hit their shots, they're going to get in such tight games like this one. Noah James was 6 for 8 from 3, very good, but at halftime, I believe he was 0 for 2. So that's why the game was close. The whole team wasn't shooting great from 3. That's their specialty. Then, as the game wore on, they got in the groove, started hitting more shots. That margin opened up. And they were able to take home a very convincing win. And that's why someone like Omar Rahman is so important on that team, because if everyone's shooting, then they could just guard the perimeter. But he's such a big body, able to get points on the inside, and 35, including 16 field goals made. That's something that no one else on the team really brings. So such a key player for the team.
Yeah, the Skyhawks continue to roll. We talked about them getting to 5-1. I just checked the standings, and All Talk Sports is 1-5. So really, you watch them play, and it doesn't feel like they're 1-5. They get the muffin tops and then the all waves. So 3-5 feels like a better depiction of their season, but your record's your record ultimately, right? I mean, this stuff happens every which way. Yep. So they are
2 overtime losses is a little tough.
So there you go. So I sometimes do this, and if I have time, I like to do it kind of heading into the playoffs of like yes, no, maybe games, and I steal it from Bill Simmons, who does it for football, and like, how many games did you win? Like you won the game versus kind of someone else lost it, right? How many games did you get beat? And then how many games were 50-50 games? How many games could have went either way? And an overtime game qualifies almost automatically as one of those 50-50 games, right? So looking at teams' records, this doesn't count for real, but looking at their record in that sense of like, 2-3-2 is different than 2-5, because 3 of them could have went either way. Still, you lost them, but that kind of might tell more of a story as we get ready for the playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, there was playoff intensity between the Game Breakers and Road Dogs. A lot of good plays. They nearly saved top plays this week just because of how kind of close all, competitive wise, close all the games were. But it is the Game Breakers pulling away from the Road Dogs. 101-85. They were down after the first quarter. The Road Dogs were taking it to them, and then the Game Breakers, with a 9-point second quarter edge, and they really pull away in the fourth quarter. So it was kind of within that single digit to 9, 10, 11 points through the third quarter, and then the Game Breakers just kept it rolling, really because of hitting their threes. So they went 15-32, while the Road Dogs went 12-25. So they actually shot a higher percentage by a little. But yet it felt like, Kyler, the game breakers, once they start hitting those threes, that's when they're at their peak.
Yeah, key to this game, it was not necessarily the shooting, it was the turnovers. 4 turnovers for the game breakers, 13 for the road dogs. That's a lot of possessions going the other way. You can afford to shoot a little bit less good if you're winning that turnover battle by so much. Again, it's two teams that can definitely win playoff games, but this is just how the road dog season has been so far. Playing against good teams, can't pull it out in the end, then maybe like fourth quarter it gets away from them a little bit. They're a great team. I want to see them play the full 4 quarters, and maybe they'll surprise some teams in the playoffs. Their record definitely does not show how good they are.
The Road Dogs find themselves at 2-4, while the Game Breakers, one of those 4 teams, kind of pulling away and separating themselves in that top 4 at 5-1. Gian Abedisian, 38 points and 9 threes. We talked about the threes started falling. Hachi Amini, 23 and 11 rebounds. Jose Mercado with 23 and Charles Alexander with 17. So when those guys are all probably, well, we can do math later. When they're all going to score over 15, they're all rolling and they're all doing good things. It's going to come down to the threes for them, it feels like, and they're okay with that. And it's worked out great for them so far because they've been hitting a high percentage. I mean, 47% nearly in this one. That will get it done. That will, with their talent and their ability on both ends, that will get it done. The Road Dogs, Kareem Cooper with 33 led the way and 12 rebounds. Karan Bostic, 15 and 3 threes. Anthony Lyons with 14, Shaq Arju with 13. Might as well list them all at this point. Del Butler, 10 and 9. Yeah, an interesting matchup coming in, and just really one of those where I hope we see it again. This can be mean, and that's okay, but based on the records, the result may not be different, but it could be. And it's one of those where it's like, I'd like to see it again, just because, as a fan. And so, yeah, let's kind of touch on these last 2. We're making some good time, and then we will... I'll throw Kyler a question that I come up with between then and now. But the Air Mambas improve to 3-3. They get back in the win column with a win over Velocity. 111-68. Nick Lemoyne led the way with 25, and they only went 4 of 11 from 3. It was semi-close kind of in the first quarter and then wasn't from then on. So really, I know, and let me do the stats quick. We can go faster this way. Ashton Alcock with 33 and 16 threes. Brody Cocroft with 17 and 10. They made 11 threes as a team. They got destroyed on the board, 64-31. So, if the Air Mambas are going to miss a shot and then be able to get a rebound and extremely limit Velocity to one and done, that's kind of going to result in that lead blowing up. But for the Air Mambas, Kyler, they get back to 3-3. I'll give you their schedule later. Well, we've already done that a ton of times on the post-game show, but what is their recipe? And maybe not even so much this game, but kind of what you've seen this season. What is their recipe to look their best and be able to compete with some of the teams above them?
Yeah, it's moving the rock and hitting their shots. That's what they need to do. They have such great talent with Nick Lemoyne, Mario Valerio. We see him a lot. And then Aiden Dozos, who sometimes goes 8 for 8 and sometimes goes 1 for 8. And they just need that consistency from every player because they should be able to win more games. They shouldn't be 3-3. But that's just how the season's gone for them. I think having a game against Velocity, that's great for them. That's a tough loss last week against the Road Dogs. Get a bounce back this week. Let's get the momentum going, and then they'll be perfectly primed for playoffs coming up soon. And they're just like the Road Dogs, where their record doesn't necessarily show how good they are, and they could surprise some teams.
Yeah, I like it. And I think their 2 remaining opponents, we're going to learn a lot about them. And it's going to be the story of their season because they might finish 5-3. They might finish 3-5. They might finish somewhere in between. But they get the halfway crooks and then the game breakers. So it doesn't necessarily get easier, but this is the type of game you want to have coming into those 2 matchups. Let's get to the All Waves, who also get back to their winning ways, and we'll kind of give you a little breakdown on them. The All Waves 78, the Muffin Tops 41, a huge first quarter. The All Waves rolling throughout. Mike Labonte, 17 points and 5 threes. Terrence Gallo with 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists. So doing a little bit of everything. Nick Montanino, 12 and 10, a double-double. And Frank Smith for the Muffin Tops, 15 and 11. And Michael Berto, 18 and 6. 2 of 13 from 3 for the Muffin Tops. And again, the All Waves only went 7 of 14. So not a lot of threes in that one. Some cool highlights at the end of that game, and both teams having a blast for sure at the end of that game. But Kyler, for the All Waves, and this is almost a good spot to kind of wrap in a little while too, but they are, 1 second, so the All Waves get in the win column 2 wins now on the season, 2 and 4, tied with the Road Dogs and kind of looking up at Halfway Crooks, Air Mambas, Providence Defense, Skyhawks, and so on. In their wins, right, what have you seen? I mean, they had a close loss to the Halfway Crooks where, let me just get this out now, it wasn't close until the fourth quarter. And then kind of what their season has been is they hit a ton of threes, they come back, that's a credit to them, and they make it interesting. I'm not even sure I would count that as a 50-50 game. I mean, when the game is tied in the fourth quarter, I guess technically it could go either way, but looking back at that whole game, and just because I lived it, it was a 14-point game, and they looked like, the Halfway Crooks looked like the better team, right? So they came back, respect, and they've been in these games. What do they do? And we've said, they need to do it the entire game, but what specifically can they do the entire game besides make shots, right? What can they do to kind of compete with any team in this league?
Yeah, they're one of the most difficult teams to talk about because it feels like every week they come out with a new lineup. They have 2 really good bigs with Jake Ashstetter and Nicholas Montemino. So those 2 players have only played in the same game once this whole season. I think if they could have a system where at least one of them is on the court at all times, disrupting shots, kind of playing in that Jeff Dreschel role, they can be such a good team because we've seen Josh Sapina hit shots. We've seen what Terrence Gallo can do on the fast break, getting nifty and getting these crazy dunks. They're a team that can do so many things, but with a new lineup every week, not as much flow, not necessarily the best defense, it's a team that keeps struggling and is falling down the rankings. They're a team, though, we say in this league it's the top 4 teams, and then realistically 5 and 6 should win in the playoffs. Maybe the Always will be 10th, 9th. That means that they'll have a tough game to play against, but they should be able to really put a fight in against whoever they play in the first round.
Yeah, and so they wrapped the season, and that's kind of a good spot to kind of take us to our last thing here. But they wrapped the season with the Washed Up Boys and then All Talk Sports. So 2-0 is always the dream. That All Talk game is
huge for both teams, yeah.
Yeah, but then that All Talk game in the final game of the season can bump you up in the standings there for sure. And then the head-to-head will probably matter as well. Because if the All Waves come in with 2 wins and All Talk has 1 win, but they were to win in Week 8, both teams would have 2 wins, and that would put All Talk above the All Waves in the standings, so it can be a big climb there. We'll get it on the record now. If more than 2 teams are tied, one of the teams would have had to played and beaten every team they're tied with. You can't just beat one of the teams you're tied with and not the other. That's not how tiebreakers work. And then the difference would be point differential after that. So it's margin of victory if there's no head-to-head tiebreaker that applies. So, like you talked about, the 5 doesn't get a bye, but they play the 12, the 4 plays the 11, and so on. But even just kind of looking at the teams that are probably in the middle, Kyler, and this will be kind of how we end it, which is awesome. 2 games left. Which team in that middle of the pack, because we kind of, we can preview the semifinals as we get closer, but, Providence Defense, Air Mambas, Halfway Crooks, Road Dogs, All Waves, All Talk Sports if they make a huge jump. Like, which one of them has the most to gain these last couple weeks to really set themselves up for a deep playoff run?
Yeah, it's got to be Providence defense, I think, in the 7, just below that threshold that we talked about. But Jesus Thames has been playing so well. They've played games with just 3 guys, just 4 guys. I think that they're a team that could definitely climb up in these last couple of games to the 6, to the 5, even to the 4, maybe. We'll see. But they could really use getting that first playoff game under their belt with a win as a team that's new to the league, who doesn't necessarily have the playoff experience. I think if they could win maybe the next 2 games, one of the next 2 games, jump up that 1 spot, 2 spots, that would be massive for them.
It's a great thing to end on because it's a great preview. They get the Game Breakers next week, which will be a game to watch at 8:15 on Tuesday night. Yeah. Okay, good. Wow. Then they play the other Tuesday night as well at 8:15 against Lob City. So 2 huge games for Providence defense. Yeah, they can go a ton of different ways, clearly, but in the playoffs it's different. I don't have Providence's defense's schedule here, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but I'm going to pull it up quickly, and we're going to get out of here. Not a lot of close games for them. I mean, this game, this past week against the Washed Up Boys was a 4-point game, and what I mean is like when it's tied and you have to make decisions, now we're down 1. Do we foul? Do we play it out? There's 40 seconds left. Like, they turn it over. Now you're up 1. Those types of very, very, close games in this league are different. Then you get to the playoffs, and it ratchets everything up again, and it's totally different in the fourth quarter in a 5-point game with 8 to go. Rather, in the regular season, it still kind of feels different. So not to pick on them, but the new teams, it's huge for Providence defense to have the Game Breakers and Lob City to really, as they're kind of playing and they're getting used to the league, to play some of those teams ahead of them, try to steal one, but get that experience because they are surely going to play a team like that at some point in the playoffs. And it doesn't hurt to get a little practice now. So week 6, I like it. Just to kind of, let's see if I can get back to the schedule quickly enough. Week 7, I think the games to watch: Providence defense, Game Breakers. Air Mambas halfway. Crooks is Frisky. Both teams are 3-3. Road Dogs, Skyhawks I'm in on, even though 2 teams are kind of a little farther apart in the standings. And let's just do it. Look out for Washed Up Boys in the All Waves. You never know. I would pick the favorite, and I do love me some All Waves. I'd pick the favorite, but we've seen crazier things. And the Washed Up Boys are playing well. We didn't spend a ton of time on. Well, we did in the beginning. It's been 20 minutes. But yeah, they're playing very well. Kyler, anything else?
That's all. I'm excited for week 7.
That's how it ends. Week 7 and 2 weeks left in the regular season, like I said. Thanks for watching, everybody. Keep an eye on the website. We'll be back next week with another post-game show, and then we'll really start to preview those playoffs, which start in August. Yeah, the first Monday in August. We'll have some first-round matchups. Kyler, good job on the post-game show. Check out the website, thelegacyleagues.com, and thanks for watching.